Warning: these disappearances shouldn't exist. A hunter defies survival instincts. A doctor vanishes in plain sight. A teen's remains appear miles from logic. The evidence is too strange. What's really lurking in the wild? Stay until the end. The truth is worse than you imagined. Miss this and you'll never know what's out there waiting. In October of 1969, deep in the wilds of Central Oregon near Sparks Lake, a 78-year-old retired logger named Robert Winters set out on what should have been a routine and joyful hunting trip. For 2 decades, Robert had returned to this same stretch of forest each year with his sons, knowing the terrain better than most know the back of their own hand. He was no novice. He was not frail or disoriented. This man was as seasoned in the outdoors as they come, and every choice he made in the woods was backed by a lifetime of experience. But on this trip, something happened that defied all sense, training, and logic. On October 8th, a snowstorm loomed in the forecast. Robert and his 3 sons, wary of the risk, agreed to stay low around their campsite that day rather than ascend the mountain trails. It was a unanimous decision rooted in both caution and wisdom. They split up to cover ground near their base camp, a method they'd employed countless times before, but by nightfall, Robert hadn't returned. At first, there was concern, then panic. As the first flakes began to fall, the sons knew they couldn't wait. The sheriff's office was called, and the search began with urgency. But the storm didn't wait either. In the first 24 hours, over 18 inches of snow blanketed the region, erasing all tracks, masking all signs. Helicopters were brought in, sweeping the mountainside from above. During one pass, a pilot spotted tracks near the 7,100-foot mark, nearly 2,000 feet above where the family had camped. It didn't make sense. Not only had Robert explicitly agreed not to ascend, but everything about backwoods survival in cold conditions advises against climbing to higher elevation, where temperatures drop, oxygen thins, and hypothermia strikes quicker. Those tracks were written off. Couldn't be him. Impossible. 5 days in, the official search was called off. No Robert, no blood, no disturbance, just silence. 9 months passed. Then, in a cruel twist of fate, a vacationing doctor hiking near that same elevation discovered a fire weapon propped near a tree, alongside a glove, a boot, a pair of glasses, and folded clothing, all identified as Robert Winters' belongings. There was no blood, no bones, no struggle. Everything was arranged deliberately, almost respectfully. Neat, tidy, intentional. A year later, his dentures turned up. That was it. That was all. No body, no trace, just whispers of a man who simply ceased to be. The coroner refused to sign a death certificate. How could he? Nothing suggested Robert had died. And yet, how could he be alive, lost in the high wilderness of Oregon for over a year without a word? A signal, a trace? Eventually, pragmatism won over disbelief and the certificate was issued, though not without protest from logic itself. For Robert Winters to have abandoned every principle of his training and climbed into certain death, undressing himself calmly beside a tree before vanishing, it defied explanation. It was impossible, and yet the evidence sat silent beneath the trees. February 19, 1999, brought another mystery to the fore, this time at the Bear Valley Ski Resort, nestled in the Sierra Nevada, just 30 miles south of Lake Tahoe. Dr. Catherine Wong, a 47-year-old pediatrician from San Jose, had come with her husband John, their children, and relatives for a winter getaway. Catherine was no stranger to the slopes. She was a skilled skier, cautious yet confident, and eager for the thrill of fresh snow. That day was picture-perfect, sunlit powder and crisp air. After lunch in the lodge, Catherine and John chose to hit the trails while the others rested. At some point on the descent, they agreed to take separate runs, an entirely normal decision. Catherine took a trail she'd already conquered that morning, familiar and well within her skill level. John reached the bottom, waited, and then waited longer. Time stretched uncomfortably. He scanned the slope, but there was no movement, no sign of her. Not even a fall. He retraced steps, informed ski patrol, and within hours, the sheriff was involved. Search teams swept all 75 trails of the resort. Not a single footprint or ski track led off the main runs. It was as if the mountain had swallowed her whole. For 2 days, the search continued with dogs, thermal imaging, aerial sweeps, everything. Nothing. Then the weather turned. Bitter cold and fierce snow drove rescue teams back. They declared her deceased. The Wongs were told to grieve, but how do you mourn someone who simply evaporated? Whispers began. Speculation. Did she run away? Was it foul play? But none of it made sense. Catherine's life was stable. Her marriage was happy. Her husband passed a lie detector test. There was no scandal, no debt, no secret, just mystery. For months later, a hiker discovered a ski pole protruding from a ravine. A steep, heavily forested cut in the land 1/2 mile from the nearest resort boundary. Deep inside, searchers found bone fragments, scattered remains, and ski gear. The terrain was so treacherous that initial searches had dismissed it as unreachable, especially considering the snow drifts that, at the time of her disappearance, towered 8 feet deep. To reach that spot alone, Catherine would have needed to traverse deadly terrain and thick woods without leaving so much as a print. There were no tracks, not a drag mark, not even a broken branch, just her hidden away in a place no one thought to look. Theories surfaced. Some said an animal harm, but no one could name the creature capable of silently removing a person from a populated ski slope in broad daylight and dragging them 1/2 mile through snow without being seen. Others said she wandered, disoriented, maybe concussed. But how? Why? And why weren't her tracks visible? Even if a predator were involved, no predator cleans up its trail so meticulously. The bones were scattered over a 1/4 mile, far too dispersed for a natural fall. The scene raised far more questions than it answered. It was as if the mountain had taken her, held her, and then quietly let go. Then there was Corey Fay, a 17-year-old from Beaverton, Oregon, who vanished on November 23, 1991. He wasn't an expert hunter, but he wasn't new either. He had taken survival courses and practiced their teachings rigorously. That morning, he and 2 friends headed out to hunt elk. They arrived at the trailhead, split up, and agreed to rendezvous at the truck by 6:30 p.m. Night came. 2 returned. Corey didn't. When the sheriff's department arrived, they threw every resource they had into the search. Helicopters sliced through the skies, scent tracking dogs covered ground, mounted units canvassed trails, and 250 trained personnel fanned out across 12 square miles. Nothing. 10 days of relentless searching turned up 0 evidence. Not even a scrap. The FBI was quietly consulted. When local authorities call in federal agents, it signals more than procedural caution. It hints at fear, a suspicion that something darker is afoot. Rumors swirled. Had his friends made a mistake, accidentally unalived him and buried the evidence? But even the best sniffer dogs in the world couldn't find a gravesite. The idea withered under scrutiny. The search ended on December 1st, but volunteers kept looking. Then, 10 months later and 10 miles away from the original search site, at a higher elevation, 2 hunters stumbled across a fire weapon, a jacket, and a backpack. Corey's belongings. Search teams returned to this new location, now desperate for answers. They combed the area and found fragments of bone. A tooth, that was all. No pants, no boots, no ribcage, no skull. Just echoes of a boy and more questions than could be answered. The math didn't add up. To get from the original site to this discovery point meant climbing 3,000 feet through waist-deep snow. That's 5 grueling miles of uphill travel in conditions that sap strength and steal heat from the body faster than most realize. According to his survival training he took seriously, Corey should never have gone uphill. That was rule number 1. Always descend. Always conserve heat. Always find shelter. His grandparents were adamant. Corey was not someone who panicked. He was measured, practical, and grounded. If he had been lost, he would have remembered his training. But his remains weren't in a shelter, not along a trail, not near any landmark that would help someone orient themselves. They were 10 miles and 3,000 feet off course. Why? Did he willingly make that climb in the cold, shedding reason with every step? Did something force him to go? Did something take him there? And then there's the nagging impossibility. If it were a mountain lion or bear, How could it drag a teenage boy, his fire weapon, and his backpack across 10 miles of snowy mountain terrain without a trail of blood, torn earth, or crushed brush? There was no indication of an animal struggle. No teeth marks, no drag lines, just a fire weapon resting as if placed. Just a jacket lying quietly on the ground. Just silence. Each of these cases unfolds like a haunting riddle carved into the landscape of North America's wilderness. Robert Winters disappears into the sky above Sparks Lake, abandoning survival wisdom to climb into the storm. Catherine Wong vanishes from a crowded ski slope with no one seeing a thing, only to be found in a forest few could reach. Corey Fay is absorbed by the mountains, ending up 10 miles from logic, his final steps contradicting everything he had ever learned. These are not accidents. These are not random tragedies. These are fractures in the map, glitches in the story we tell ourselves about safety and certainty. Something is out there, something indifferent to our rules, something we cannot see, cannot track, cannot understand. And the most terrifying part? These are just 3 names in a list that keeps growing. So what do you think really happened to Robert Winters, Dr. Catherine Wong, and Corey Fay? Were these tragic accidents? Or is there something else lurking in the wild, something we're not meant to understand? Could a pattern be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be noticed? Drop your theories in the comments below. We want to hear what you think. And if you're intrigued by the unexplained, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next.